Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Stacey West preview show. I'm your host, Jake. We're back for another game week. Missed the last couple of weeks due to work, but we are back this week. Double header. First of all, we've got Rotherham at home. Very fortunate to be joined by Will Daniels. Will, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not too bad, thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. After Saturday, obviously the first league game that I seem to miss, but you know what, we'll quickly gloss over that. How have you been finding being back at the football then? Obviously, 18 months away from the New York, and you know it must be emotional to have gone back the other week for the first time.
It was, to be honest, it was pretty difficult. The players walked out, and we heard the first roar of Rotherham, Rotherham, which is one of our best songs. I was tearing up, and a full stadium, fans back. It has a massive effect on the players, and I think if I'm completely honest, if those fans were in that stadium last season, I think we'd still be a championship club. But it is what it is, I guess.
I think we'll touch on the championship last year. Just one thing that I wanted to sort of get my teeth sunk into first and foremost was the summer transfer window. Obviously, Rotherham brought in quite a few names over the summer window. One question that probably doesn't get asked as much as it should do, but what player have you brought in from the summer that's made the most impact now that we're 6-7 games into the season?
Great question. I think the obvious answer would probably be Ollie Rathbone. So he's a player that we signed from Rochdale, and I know that Warne's been after him for quite a while. Had a really good season at Rochdale last season, and seems to have come in and really hit the ground running. To be honest, has the ability to defend quite astutely, but also get forward and make some really telling runs. And has been a thorn in quite a lot of sides. I know I speak to a fan of Morecambe on a regular basis, and he was really impressed of his showing at Morecambe. And he was the guy that set up Michael Smith's wonder goal in that game. So Ollie is probably the one that stands out, if I'm completely honest. I think there's a lot of really good signings for Rotherham. I think one of the things that we've noticed at the start of this season is we've created a lot of chances and probably not taken as many as we should have. So in Will Grigg coming into the club, we've got a player that is a known striker at this level. I think he's had 4 seasons where he's scored more than 20 goals. And I fully believe that with him in the side, we can be right up there at the end of May.
I mean, from an outsider's point of view, I think the best piece of business that Rotherham did this year was keeping hold of Michael Smith up top. Obviously, by far one of the best centre forwards in the division this year. Was there a lot of rumoured interest? I know I saw a couple of championship clubs sort of sticking their noses in, but were you ever worried that he might leave?
The longer it went on, the more I thought that it wouldn't happen, because for a player of Smudge's talent, he's going to be very, very difficult for us to replace when he does actually leave the club. So the longer it went on, I think the more I thought someone wouldn't pay the price. There were rumours at the point of Middlesbrough coming in and not wanting to pay 1.5 million for him, which I still think, for a guy that I see as the best talent, the best target man in the EFL, is cheap. But they didn't want to pay that, and I think the longer it went on, the higher the price probably got because of the price that a striker would cost at that stage. So I wasn't really ever worried, and Michael has had a great start to the season. So I think he's at 4 goals already this season. Known, of course, for being this guy that just gets battered game in, game out, and he's he is a guy that creates a lot for other people around him. His expected assists this season is at 1.55 already, which is pretty incredible. The 4 goals already are very different goals to what we're used to seeing. Scored a goal outside the box, a volley against Donny, and an absolute wonder strike, which I'm sure most people have seen against Morecambe. So he's a player that we took on from Bury, and I guess at that point it was a little bit of an unknown quantity. And Warne and his management team have got the knack of taking on a player that isn't known and developing them to being the best that they can possibly be. And certainly in the case of Michael Smith, he will be a championship player next season. Whether that's with Rotherham or not remains to be seen.
I think he just sounds a bit like an upgraded Matt Reed, a player that obviously it's very famous around Lincoln. Talking about your manager there then, Paul Warne, obviously, were you surprised to keep him? Obviously, I know the fan base are quite mixed on the gaffer, but he's done a really good job at Rotherham, in terms of whenever you've gone down, you stuck with him, he's got you straight back up. Are you worn in, worn out? What's the crack there?
I am 100% worn in. And there's a lot of people that probably don't understand how much Warne brings to Rotherham United. For me, as someone that has known him on a personal level, a guy that is very emotionally intelligent, and I think for us to be able to compete at the levels that we have, you need that within a manager. We're not a team that is ever going to be able to go out and splash millions of pounds on players, but he's always gone out and got the best out of players. At the moment, we do have a bit of consensus within the fan base, I guess, that there needs to be a change within formation. But Warne's been in this situation before where, things haven't been going right. And he's got results out of the back of it. I remember he was struggling at one point, and then we were 1-0 down against Blackpool in his first League One campaign, and came back to win 2-1. And we got promoted that season. So I'm not worried, certainly at this stage, about Warne, and I'd love him to be at the club for a very, very long time. I think he's a guy that most fans want to be a manager of their football club because of the way that he conducts himself. So yeah, long may he be Rotherham United manager for me.
And even if you guys weren't able to get promoted, which obviously your ambition for the season, would Warne still be the man you felt would take the club forward?
It's a great question. I think for me, he gets what Rotherham United fans want, what the identity should be. So he understands what it takes to be successful. And I think that's the reason that he's had 2 promotions on his CV with us. So I would have confidence that if it's not this season, in a really, really strong League One, can I just say, then it would be next season. So I would have the patience, and I think he's earned that from his time here already. Whether that's the general consensus, I'm not sure, if I'm completely honest. But who knows? Football's an ever-changing game. So if Warne goes, he'll certainly leave the club in a much better place than it was before. But that's not, I don't want to see Paul Warne leave this football club anytime soon.
We'll just talk about Rotherham then before we go on to the League One in general. Last year in the Championship, obviously you came back down. You said previously you felt if fans were in the crowd, you might have had a chance of staying up. It was quite controversial, was it? Especially that last day. I mean, everything surrounding Derby, and there was Sheffield Wednesday in the mix. There was Wickham in the mix. Was there a point that you sort of felt, we're gonna actually beat the drop here?
It's difficult because, to all intents and purposes, we had a squad that performed, I think, to a mid-level to bottom 8 level, I think, of the Championship, and we created a lot of chances, certainly second half of the season, and that will be the underlying reason as to why we're a League One club and not the Championship, I guess. For me, we didn't get dealt a great hand. COVID obviously had a huge impact on, the amount of games that we had to play back to back. And I personally question whether that would have been allowed to happen if we were a bigger name club within the Championship. Also, there was a bit of a controversy in terms of when we played Coventry. So I think we really wanted to play in which in the international break, because that would have really helped us with the backlog of our fixtures. Of course, Coventry were down there themselves and didn't want to help us out, and that's absolutely fine. But they also had no internationals, so I feel that the EFL could have helped us out a little bit there, and obviously didn't want to. To answer your question, I was confident all the way through that the team had the quality to stay in the league, and my emotion when Lewis Wing struck that 25-yard volley after 14 minutes on that final day didn't change from that. I thought we were more than good enough to stay up, and unfortunately we had that sucker punch in the 89th minute, I think it was, which is, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But you can't, in football, it just moves so quickly. So the Championship wasn't to be, unfortunately, and we have to pick ourselves up and go again in what I said is a really strong League One this season. You could probably pick 10 or 12 teams that would fancy their chances of being promoted this season, and Lincoln being in on that 12.
Obviously, both clubs would probably feel a bit harshly done by to not be in the Championship last year. Obviously, you guys not staying up, us losing the playoff final. You touched on League One there, how strong it is. It's incredible, isn't it, in terms of the spending? I think Michael Appleton, and I know Steve Evans obviously refers to it quite a lot, the spending in League One. Can't quite believe the levels of it. You look at Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, obviously another club that can afford to pay towards the top end of the division. How difficult do you think it's going to be for any of those clubs to get out? Because obviously there's only 3 teams that can do it, and we've mentioned maybe 14, 15 are wanting to be in those 2 spots. So, how difficult is it going to be for them?
I was shocked by some of the spending, if I'm completely honest, that we've seen in League One so far, and for some, that's yielded some results. Sheffield Wednesday are a great example of that, and for some it hasn't. Ipswich have, gone and signed a significant amount of players on huge wages, can we add, and it's not quite clicked as of yet. For us at Rotherham, we're a side that has retained most of our squad, to be honest, and we've lost a couple of key players, Lewis Wing being one of them, Matt Crooks, of course. We lost Matt Olasunde, but I feel that we've recruited well enough within the transfer window to really push on. And they're not, the players that we signed aren't on huge wages, I don't think. If you compare Lewis Wing's wages, for example, to Ollie Rathbone's, it'll be a drop in the ocean, I would imagine. But we've still managed to sign a decent quality level of player, which is really helpful, I think. So the jury's out in terms of what that squad's going to look like. But for me, we're a side that is just going to get better and better. And I guess you could say the same for the rest of League One, whilst those squads start to tick. But the performances that we've seen so far, we've not been a million miles away of where I'd want to be at the end of the season, if I'm completely honest. We are a team that has we have an expected conceded goals ratio of so 4.47 is the amount of goals that we're expected to concede, compared to the level of shot that we face, which is the lowest in the league. We've conceded 7 so far, which of course is skewed by yesterday's result against Fleetwood. And from the attacking point of view, the expected points that we should have had is 5 lower at the moment than what we should have. So it shows that there's an opportunity there for us to defend a little bit better, but also to take our chances, which, as I mentioned, Will Grigg coming in will really help that. And, potentially, learning the style of play, the formation is only going to help us moving forward. We've just had a week off for the international break, which will help every team within the league and will be no different, although, of course, we didn't show that yesterday.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned yesterday Fleetwood knocking 4 past you. What went wrong? Obviously, you went. You had the penalty. You were 2-1 up at going into half time. Where did it go wrong?
Great question. I think Fleetwood were, had a great idea of how they wanted to play. And to be honest, I did the preview of Fleetwood and didn't really know what to expect. So they played 5 different formations in the first 7 games, for example. They've obviously just had the international break to work on what they wanted to do, and they really took us apart in terms of dropping the ball in behind our wing backs. So we played Chio Ogbene and Kieran Sadlier, who are both known as very offensive wingers, and they don't particularly want to defend. So Lincoln sought to drop the ball in behind and play quite deep. Not Lincoln, sorry, Fleetwood even. Decided to drop the ball in behind, and Callum Morton in particular, and Callum Camps causes a huge amount of issues. Callum Morton, of course, you'll know very well yourselves, so I'm sure we'll talk about him further on. But a really strong performance, and hopefully it's a one-off for us, and we can come back on Tuesday. The good news is, of course, when you're playing in this league, it's thick and fast, and you can get over those sorts of results quite quickly with a strong performance, 3 days later, and hopefully we can do that.
Callum Morton playing well is something we didn't really see very often. What was it about him then that stuck out? Because obviously he scored the first goal, made the goal really well for himself, I thought, and then he just seemed to be on another level in terms of his energy and his pressing of your defence. And then you have Danny Andrew as well, the free kick. I mean, we had it done to us as well, so we fully know what's going on. But Callum Morton, just talk to us a bit about his performance on Saturday.
He was a player that we were looking at in the summer, and I believe that he chose Fleetwood because he wanted more game time than we could offer, or other clubs as well, I would assume. Because I would imagine it's not just Rotherham that wanted him. He just did not stop running. He ran, he was everywhere. He was like a Duracell bunny, to be honest. Running the channels really well, fetched players into play, linked up really well with Jed Garner and the 3 midfielders that Fleetwood played. The strongest performance from a forward that I've seen within League One this season. Outside of probably Michael Smith, of course, but it felt a little bit like the one that got away yesterday, I think.
Well, just you wait till you see Anthony Scully, 2 goals on yesterday and 3 assists. Just a warning. Let's talk about Lincoln then. You've been impressed with us so far this year. Obviously, we've not got off to a fantastic start, but we've really clicked over the last 10 days, given the international break. But it all came to the floor yesterday. And is it a game you're potentially looking at and going, well, we take a point here?
I think for us, you're always looking to try and take 3 points, but I watched the highlights last night and dreaded the thought of Anthony Scully running at the defence that performed like it did yesterday. And you've got Hacks on the other wing as well that we had. I think he played against you guys in that 1-0 defeat a couple of years ago. So, I mean, you've got great quality across the team. Scully, of course, is the guy that's taken a lot of plaudits. I like McGrandles personally in the midfield. Chris Maguire, I don't know how much has featured for you guys as of so far, but also had a spell with us. I like Montsma at the back. You've got a great keeper. There's a lot to like about Lincoln for sure.
Did you manage to watch a lot of us last year? Obviously, in the playoffs, we lost obviously a lot of players, key players like Morgan Rogers has gone back. He's gone to Bournemouth. Brennan Johnson tearing the Championship. But did you manage to watch those playoff games or anything like that on Sky?
So I watched obviously the highlights on EFL and Quest for the majority of the season. So saw the style of play that Mike Clapperton was trying to employ. Rogers and Brennan Johnson were both incredible, I thought. And then, I mean, that semi-final against Sunderland, I don't think anyone expected you to come back and do what you did to them. So a little bit disappointing for you to not get over the line in the end at Wembley. But a great season for you guys, and I fully expect you to be right up there this season. Pushing top 6 and potentially even further. I guess the worry for you guys is if you continue performing the way that you are, and certainly Anthony Scully keeps performing the way that he is, how long is it before a championship club or potentially higher comes in to take his services?
Where I was going to go. Oh, Leith Reckington is where I was going to go. Obviously, these clubs are two quite inclined. Obviously, Leith Reckington, Josh Vickers is now on your books, and I feel like we probably all hate Steve Evans just a little bit. Let's talk about Freck then. Obviously, he's a player that was massive for Rotherham, captain during the championship, one of ours. How was Freck for you guys? Obviously, I can imagine you only have good words to say about him.
I actually don't have enough superlatives to use for Frex. Frex is probably my favourite all-time Rotherham player. A guy that it was the best number 8 that you could get, a guy that loved to tackle, a guy that loved a strike from 25 yards, an absolute leader, and a great person off the pitch as well. A great motivator of people. And what can you say about Frex that hasn't already been said? An ambassador for young people and everything that you'd want a footballer to be. And
Josh Vickers, then obviously we were all a bit surprised that we'd released him, not this summer, the summer before. And it was obviously rumoured to be training with you guys in the championship. We were all a little bit perplexed, obviously given that we've got Alex Palmer back in from West Brom. How's Vickers? Obviously, I don't think he's really seen the pitch for you guys, but how's he getting on, really?
Good question. I think when I first caught wind that we were interested, I was a little bit surprised because we'd obviously got Victor Johansson, who's our number 1 this year, and also Jamal Blackman. So it didn't really make sense to sign another keeper at the time. Obviously understood that he'd got great connections with Andy Warrington, who used to be your goalkeeper coach, and came in just for his fitness, I believe, and really bought into the group and what we were trying to do, and that saw him land a permanent contract moving forward. I was a little bit surprised to not see him get a move in the summer, but I think Portsmouth's loss is our gain in this sense. I think with everything that's going on with COVID, it's really important that you have 2 really strong keepers. Josh Vickers has proven at this level that he is more than good enough to be a number 1 and to play games. So we've not seen a great deal of Josh, if I'm completely honest. My first real chance to take a glimpse at him was in the Papa John's Trophy, or as I call it, the Pointless Pizza Trophy on Tuesday. We beat Doncaster 6-0, but that wasn't really a full reflection on the game. And Josh actually made 2 or 3 really strong saves. So, we're at the point, I think, where if Victor were to be unavailable through that be injury or international or COVID, I'd be very comfortable with Josh Vickers stepping into in between the sticks and doing a decent job.
Well, don't forget, Josh Vickers has a winner's medal in that Pointless Pizza Trophy, so it's important unless you win it anyway. Will, let's talk about Tuesday night then. I was going to say tomorrow. Tuesday night. Any team news coming out of Rotherham? Are there any players that are not likely to feature for you guys?
So Woody came off about 55 minutes in, I think, yesterday with a bit of a calf strain. So unsure as to whether he'll be fit. Possibly not. I know Shane Ferguson scored a 30-yard screamer against Estonia, has come back and has a little bit of a knock, so he's a little bit of a doubt, as is Mikel Miller, who obviously has the red card from the Donny game, so I don't think he'll be available either. So difficult to know how we'll line up and what the permutations of yesterday's performance will look like in terms of the lineup. I'd be expecting Dan Barlaser to potentially come into the side, a guy that essentially likes to play a quarterback role. His vision and passing is on its day the best in League One quite comfortably. So keep an eye out for him. I would personally expect Will Grigg to come into the lineup. I think Fred's missed a couple of chances yesterday that maybe Will would have took. And I guess from us, I would fully expect Chio Ogbene, to be our right wing back. A lot of our attacks this season have come through Chio, so I think he's averaging at the moment about 19 forward runs per game, which is about 3 more than any other right winger in the league. So pretty decent numbers. So a lot of our attacks will come from that side, I think. And the way that we play is very much focused around getting the ball out to the wings and getting crosses into the box for the height of Smith, and Smith to potentially bring other players into the foray. We've got 3 very attack-minded, central midfielders in Wales. Rathbone and Lindsay's played a little bit further forward this season as well. So crosses, headed goals, set pieces will be a big thing for us as well, I think, on Tuesday night. So it'll be interesting to see who can come out on top there.
Obviously, I know it's a game you said you're coming to look to win, but are Rotherham expected to win this game? And in terms of a starting 11, would you be able to give us what you would possibly pick if you were Paul Warne?
Of course. So in terms of what I would pick, I would go with obviously Victor in goal. Made a couple of mistakes, but he's actually been relatively solid throughout the season so far. I think Woody will drop out, so I would expect a back 3 of Wes Harding to the right of that 3. Michael Ihekwe in the middle of that 3, who's a massive focus from our set pieces, and Romani Edmonds-Green, when I can get his name out, who's a guy that we've taken on loan from Huddersfield, who looked really good when he came on Saturday. At left wing back will be a toss-up between Talaji Bowler, who's a guy that is ex-Arsenal Rochdale as well, that we've recently signed, and Kieran Sadlier. I personally, given how well your wingers have been playing, would play Bowler because he's better from a defensive point of view. And on the right wing will be Chio Ogbene because of the attacking threat that he gives us. On the right of the 3 that I would play would be a Dauphin. So a Dauphin at one point was a guy that had the most interceptions within under 23 European football last season. And that's going to be really important for us to hopefully win that battle against Scully, I think. On the other side of that, I would also have Dan Barlaser within that quarterback role. Really important from set pieces. His delivery is really great, and obviously bringing players like Smudge and Ogbene into play, he'll be a big part. Rathbone playing a little bit further forward out of those 3, as almost a 10, I guess. And then Michael Smith is probably the first name on the team sheet, accompanied by hopefully a Will Grigg that is going to catch fire.
Hopefully not. A score prediction as well.
What was that? Sorry.
A score prediction. What would you go for?
I think there's goals in this one, if I'm completely honest. I would probably go with maybe 2-1 Millers. Being an optimist.
He's brave. We respect it. Anything to plug at all, Will, whilst we've got the opportunity just before we finish the video?
Of course. I mean, firstly, thanks for having me on. I've just started a brand new blog, for Rotherham United fans called Tivoli View, which is hopefully going to be quite stats orientated. You've probably heard within the interview that's the way that I want to go with that. It's really for the fans, so to really educate them. And what I found was, the way that football is going is all about data. So to educate myself and educate the fans around me would really help our understanding. So looking to do that. There'll be opposition views on there as well. So I've got a chat with Imps Analytic as well to get their thoughts. we've got some previews on fans within the fan base. So lots going on at the moment. It's still very much in its infancy. So if you want to take a look at the Twitter or the Facebook page at Tivoli View, be great to have you on board.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Will, for coming on. I'm sure we'll see you at some point again this season, hopefully with both teams in the playoffs. Thank you everybody else for watching. We will see you some point later on next week for the preview of the Ipswich Town game. Thank you very much. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.